Don't let a 401k loan wreck your retirement. So I was watching them and saw this graph about the number of hardship withdrawals and loans that are coming out of people's 401ks. And then I saw it online and I thought, what a great thing to talk about, because it's something I've really strived to say. I will never take a 401k loan. Now, never say never, of course, but really believe that, if you take a loan from your 401k for almost any reason, I mean, there are valid reasons in some perspectives, medical expenses, of course, you can use it to do a down payment on your first house. There are reasons to take one. But again, in my own opinion, a 401k is for retirement. And I don't believe that you should be using it for anything else. Now, maybe my rule is outdated or my thought process. Curious to hear what your thoughts are. But I think the money that you put in there should be dedicated for retirement. You should be trying to pull it off, because once you start pulling it off for one reason, you're going to find an excuse to pull it off for another. And so that is just mine. But when I saw this graph of theirs that really started to show the number of people loans that people are pulling into their or from their 401ks, I really hope that it's not one of you, and it could wreck your retirement. So if you find, this interesting, if you believe that taking loans are important or okay, drop it in the comments. Like and subscribe. I'm just here sharing my own personal opinion and my own personal journey. But again, when I saw this graph, it just, was one of those things I thought, let's talk about it. Again, my thoughts on it. I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comments, to be honest. So, but let's look back at the percentage, and you can actually see it's really driving up. And, in some ways, I was actually kind of shocked on it because, in 2020, yes, we had COVID. A lot of people started to take loans and stuff like that, or could have taken loans because people were out of jobs. But the economy jumped back quite quickly. And if you looked at some of the unemployment numbers, going into 2020, 21, 2022, actually 2022 was a down year, but in general the market has been up and the job market has been fairly strong. More recently, maybe in some of the IT sector, which is where I work, there's taken some changes, but in general, it's not like a major recession has gone off in any of these years. Again, the holistic stock market was down in 2022, but in every other year, I think in here, and again, I'm not, I could be wrong, stock market returns have been great. This year, if anything, it's been a little bit less, but I believe it is up right now in April. But when you start to see these numbers, and again, 2025 was a great year, 2024 was a great year. Again, stock markets have been in that 20% or, high teens. And to see the number of people that need to take a 401k loan, it's concerning, because each one of these people that is taking money out, they're losing compounding interest over the long term. And again, when they do take it out, now depending upon, I believe, the reasons, they might be able to not pay the penalty. But in general, if you are taking money out of your 401k, you're going to pay a penalty, you're going to pay the taxes on it. So if you're pulling out a certain amount, you might need to pay more. At least that's my understanding. I have never taken a loan. And again, it's my own nature that, I believe that putting the money in for retirement should be for retirement. And you should be putting money someplace else if you do need it. Now, so that's what I really wanted to talk about more than any of that. Now, what is the average 401k balance? So I did a quick search online, and you can see here the average 401k loan amount is a little over $10,000. So I'm going to say it's closer to $11,000. And again, I don't know what people are using it for. You can see here, in here, they typically have to pay an interest rate back. So that's why some people think that they're, not losing money, because they're paying themselves back, and they're paying themselves back at a small interest. But the reality is when the stock market went up 20% and 10% and 15% over the last couple of years, and let's say you had that $10,000, a 20% return is, $2,000. A 10% is $1,000. So they might have lost in some of these scenarios $3,000, $4,000. And yeah, sure, they paid themselves back, but they actually took the money out. So instead of having, let's say, $10,000 in the amount, let's say it was zero, then they're not really making that huge return on their investment. So that is my thing, is that you're losing the lost investment growth while the loan is outstanding. So how can you fix it? So more than anything, how do you fix it? And I think obviously the goal is, how do you get some type of an investment account on the side that you can access so you don't need to take your 401k loan? So I used two different compounding calculators here I thought I'd use. And here is one. It's a savings goal calculator. Again, this is off of Tinkytown. I really like their tools. And what I did was I kind of pulled in, since the average loan is $11,000, I'm not saying that's what your emergency saving or savings account should have. I'm just saying use the average of $11,000. And if you could save that over 2 years, you have nothing saved, you're going to need to save about $435 a month. Now, that's with a return of 5%. And this tool does have some inflation numbers in here. But again, the amount saved, when you look here, is $11,000. So 2 years, I think hopefully you don't need to take that loan during that period. But if you could save, this type of amount of money over 2 years every single month, you wouldn't, the next time you needed to take a loan, you could pull it out of your own account and not get that lost account of money in the market. And then I used the compounding saving calculator. I actually like this one a little bit more, not really around a goal perspective, but just show you what small contributions can do over a period of, a few years or something like that, that you could start to build up that nest egg so that in the event that you did need to take a loan, again, you'd have that money on your, in your own account. And this, I did a much more modest, amount of money. So I said, if you had zero money and you wanted to do it over 5 years, you could put 10 years or whatever. Let's actually change it to 10 just to show you the time period at a 6% return. Again, I think this is money that you need to access a little bit more frequently. So maybe even 6% would be too much. Maybe you want to put down in the 4% if you try to do some type of CD ladder or something like that. But if you were saving $50 a week, which I think a lot of people could do, that's around $200 a month, and you can see what that money could turn into over 10 years. Now, I don't know if 10 years is the right amount of time for an emergency fund, because you probably want to have that build up faster. But over, at the end with $50 every week, you can see here at year 4, you'd have right around that $11,000. Year 5, you'd have, a little over $14,000. Now maybe you could do more than $50. Maybe you could do $250. And let's change that back to per month. You can see here again, at 4 years, you're a little over $13,000. I think if you have a very stable job, or you feel like you have a fairly stable job, you could do it over a longer period of time. And again, in the event that something did happen, you could pull from it. But again, the goal, I would, I believe you want to really put money in the market and invest it, and try to get like that 8% return, right? Versus trying to get a 4. So, this type of an account for me, again, these are emergency savings accounts. You want to grow them up to be able to, if there is a true emergency, you could pull from it. But at the same time, I really want to get that money in the market, making a much larger rate of return, so that you're definitely beating and exceeding inflation and not trying to barely meet it. Or in these last couple of years, if you were getting, a 3 or 4% return, you might have actually been losing value over time. So, what are your thoughts? Do you feel, similar to me, that taking loans from 401ks could really harm your retirement? And what strategies are you using so that you don't have to take one? I'm really curious to hear what other people have done. I've been very fortunate and I haven't had to do it. And again, I really would strive to do almost anything possible to not take it from my retirement. I don't want to be like one of these articles, and maybe we'll talk about it next time in another video, is where, somebody's in their late 50s and they only have $10,000, or they have debt and they have no savings. That is why I'm so strong around this. I've had, certain family members, that for one reason or another lost a lot of money at near the end of their life. And, that's probably shaped my opinion on really striving to save and invest so that I'm able to have a very comfortable retirement. And I hope you do too. So I hope you like this one. Throw your thoughts in the comments and see you on the next one. Thanks.